Welcome to the We Are Libertarians 2020 Presidential Candidate Series. I am your host, Hody Johns, and I am joined today by candidate for president, Ben Leder. Is that correct? That's how it's pronounced?
That is exactly how it's pronounced. Thank you.
I want to say leader, and you probably wanted to say leader too, right?
No, I like Leder just fine. I see how people get it mixed up. And I guess, I guess there's some jokes to be had there considering that I'm running for president, but, oh, well, I don't care how you pronounce it. I know who you're talking to.
Yeah, all right. Leder for leader.
Yeah.
Awesome. So question one, every single other question is going to have to do something with politics. So let's just hear about you just non-politically. Who are you? Tell me about your family, your work situation. You're just everything that you would want somebody to know about you if we're ignoring political philosophy for just a minute.
Okay. Well, I come from a long line of liberty lovers. I can trace both sides of my family back to the American Revolution. The first members of my family ended up here in this country in 1590, which was like over 420 years ago or something. It was a while ago. We've participated in this experiment, if you will, that is America since the beginning. I guess I feel that, I need to do, my part to carry that forward. My family, my dad, he's still alive. He's a pretty cool guy. He was an Eagle Scout, an Army officer, an award-winning news reporter, and was a director for Bell Helicopter towards the end of his career there, and retired. He's retired now, and spends, I guess, his day watching cable news, among other things. And my mom graduated from UT right here in Austin, and she worked for the city of Dallas for a little while, met my dad. They got married. Had me and my brother, and she didn't work there for a while. She was kind of a stay-at-home mom there for the first part of my childhood. She'd get some part-time jobs at some doctor's offices or some things like that. But nowadays she's like a full-time real estate agent, and a pretty good one too. I'm constantly impressed by her work ethic. It's just almost not human. Maybe that's where I get it from.
Awesome. All right, so let's talk about your and I didn't know you had so much lineage, but let's talk about your personal liberty journey. I would say with almost any other candidate, you're not born into it, but it almost seems like this is almost in your DNA. So what's your how'd you come to libertarianism and that mindset?
It is. Well, I was raised knowing that the last time that the government needed to be overthrown, that my family was quick to jump on board and participate in that. That was an ugly process, and I certainly hope that we don't have to revisit such an ugly process as a violent revolution. I would like to see a cultural and political renaissance, and I think that we're in a position to do that. My personal liberty journey, it started very, very young, man. I mean, you could say born into it. I was born this way. I've been bucking the system ever since I first, bumped into it. My first nightmare as a kid was, I was 5 years old, and, I had a dream that was very 1984, and I didn't even know what 1984 was. And my parents didn't let me watch rated R movies or anything like that. But I had a dream that, we basically lived in a prison, and we had to, there was a wall, and we couldn't leave without permission, and we had to check in with various government employees on a regular basis. This was my first nightmare. I'm always kind of taken back to that. And as weird as that may sound, it's just I look at where we are today. I'm like, hey, we're not too far off from that. They're talking about building a wall, and government has entered every aspect of our lives. And so I've never been one that could go along to get along. That's not my style. If I have to resist.
Awesome.
So
that definitely makes you very unique in that sense. I can't say any of the other candidates would have that liberty journey story. When you mentioned the prisons, it's funny that was your nightmare at age 5.
That was my first nightmare.
And
I'll never forget it.
And now here it is, like the dream for some people now that they're fully grown up. And voting for
it's a reality, and people are calling for it. And I try to tell people, I've got a grappling hook at the house. This wall is not going to do what you think it's going to do.
Sure.
It'd be there might be an argument there if the wall would actually do what they say that it's going to do, but it doesn't. So it's kind of ridiculous and a waste of time, money, and anyway, I don't want to hammer on the wall before it's built, but definitely when it comes time to hammer it down, I want to be there.
Yeah. So let's talk about your priorities as president. We're actually going to work backwards. First, we're going to assume you're president, then we're going to get you through the election, then we're going to get you through the primaries. I'm going to work backwards like that. So just assuming that you've been elected president, we're going to talk about your top 3 biggest problems facing America and your fix for each of those problems. So just one by one, what's problem number 1 for Benjamin Leader's presidency to address, and how would you address it?
Oh man, it's hard to pick just one. So I don't know if I'm going to necessarily say that this is my number 1 issue, but I guess we have to start somewhere. Okay, one elephant in the room that libertarians have known about for quite some time. Ron Paul was famous for championing in the Fed. So we talk about ending the Fed and things like that. We know that it's a bad deal, and we know that we want to get rid of it. I don't hear a lot of people really talking about how to get rid of it. What do we do next? And something that I'd like to raise awareness to is that the U.S. Mint is still in existence, and the U.S. Mint is separate from the Federal Reserve. We could end the Fed and transfer that responsibility over to the U.S. Mint, and we could even expand the scope of what the U.S. Mint does, modernize it with some of this new cryptocurrency blockchain stuff, and not just mint gold and silver coins, but we could have a basket of various different coins, if you will. A lot of people talk about things like the gold standard, and this is my only, one of my issues with the gold standard, or to kind of the pony standard, like Vermin Supreme. This is my issue is that goes against everything as an investor that I know to be a good idea. And what we're doing when we do that is we're centralizing what we're using to back the currency. And I don't think that that's necessarily a good idea. I think that we should have diversity there. That way, if, let's say, the gold market or the pony market tanked, the entire currency wouldn't be dragged down necessarily with it. So I don't think we should just tie to gold or limit ourselves there. I think we should diversify. And I think we definitely should explore what the blockchain and cryptocurrency technology could do for us if, let's say, the U.S. Mint was allowed to digital coin in absence of the Fed. I think that would solve the problem of inflation, which is the big hidden tax here today. I spoke with some legislators, and I told them, because this property tax is a huge issue here in Texas, and it is nationwide. And they're sitting there, the Republicans, and bless their heart, they think that they're doing something by putting a cap, let's say at 2.5% increase on property tax increases. And I say to them, I said, that doesn't sound like a lot, but over the course of 30 years, 2.5% compounding interest on a $200,000 house is an $85,000 increase. I say, a lot of people in my district are retirees. Most of them are twice my age. I live out on the lake with a bunch of people who are, 65 and older. They're on fixed income. They're not getting 2.5% more money every year. They're not expecting a 40% pay increase 30 years down the road to compensate for that. Maybe you and I have the ability to go and find a job somewhere making 40% more, but they certainly don't. And I told them, I said, eventually, this is an elephant in the room now, and eventually there's going to be a squeeze. You can't keep increasing taxes like this without that happening at some point. And these issues need to be addressed. So that is a kind of a form of inflation right there. And just kind of one example, we've seen inflation of currency in our lifetime. Remember when a Coca-Cola, when a soda was less than 50 cents, 25 to 50 cents, 35 cents.
Oh.
And now it's
like 12 quarts of milk delivered to your door for a nickel.
Yeah. So now, the same Coke that might've been 50 cents in the machine before, now it's $1 or $1.50. And, man, I remember I knew about inflation, and don't ask me how I knew about it, but I remember in kindergarten holding up a Snickers and just telling some of the kids I was in kindergarten with, there was not a class or anything going on. This wasn't a presentation. But one of these days, this Snickers is going to cost $1 million. And it's not because it's going to be worth more. It's going to be because currency is worth less. Yeah. If we moved away from the Federal Reserve to a sound monetary system, which, the Libertarian Party has, by and large, valued that. And that's been one of the Libertarian values. David Nolan, that's one of his 5 Libertarian essentials. Yeah. And I tend to agree with him. That's a problem that I'd like to address, the inflation as a result of the Federal Reserve. Also, that ties into taxation. And this will kind of tie into, I know you were going to ask some questions about, how to appeal to the economic left. Yeah. And, maybe we don't have to go into, complete order there. Like you said, I'll touch on some and you can just kind of guide this how you want.
Sure.
But so taxation. Now the economic left appears to be one of the more pro-taxation political demographics out there. But here's where the economic left gets screwed over. They have the best of intentions. They want to push programs like, Medicare for all. Bernie's, he's very economic left, and that's a big issue for them. And what ends up happening is the economic left ends up empowering government to tax. They get a hold of all this money, and what do they end up spending it on? They end up spending it on healthcare. No, they end up spending it on war, which is something that typically the economic left doesn't support. So I'm looking at the situation, and I'm not the first guy or the only guy to use this kind of phrase. I'm going to phrase it like this because it's a way that we can all understand GoFundMe government. I think we remember Gary Johnson talking about this. And other prominent libertarians have talked about this. The technology exists. Yeah. If you can GoFundMe for a wall and raise $20 million in a couple of weeks, just for a wall, I got to believe that we could put a system together and based upon tax credits. We need to transition away from the system that we have now. I understand that a lot of people, They don't like to take risks. There's all all the bad things. I'm a bold guy and I like to take risks. Let's just put that on the table now. So this program doesn't scare me because I've calculated this to be a good risk, but I understand people want to transition. So how we could transition is we could easily, within a very short amount of time, we could upload a website that was essentially GoFundMe government. You could call it whatever you wanted to, but that would be what it would. Money that you spend there, that's a dollar for dollar tax credit. So what's your favorite program, a program that maybe you would contribute to?
Defense. Excellent
choice. So let's say you want to contribute to the defense budget, every dollar that you contribute to the defense budget is $1 less that you owe on taxes. That's a dollar for dollar tax credit. So what this does is this begins to take money out of the IRS. The IRS, all the administrative costs, it's not a very efficient organization. Maybe it was, 100 years ago, but things have really efficientized since then.
Yeah.
And we need to take advantage of that efficiency. Let's say somebody else, they want to support Medicare for all. Well, go ahead. You put your money into the Medicare for all program, and Hody will put his money into the defense program. And, they don't have to feel guilty or feel like their principles are being violated because they're being forced into paying for a program that they do not support, and neither do you. And I think that this is where the economic left and the economic right and the social left and the social right can come together and say, you know what? We all win here. This is a win-win-win-win for all of us if we do it this way. I'm not forced into paying for your programs. You're not forced into paying for my programs. If my program is just either ahead of its time or obsolete and other people don't want to support it, programs naturally die. And here's how we can present this during the transition period too. We can say,
sorry, I unmuted you. You're good now.
There's an incoming call.
Oh, okay.
Let me decline it.
Yeah, you're good.
Is my audio good?
I think so. Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry about that.
You're fine.
So, this is we can go to the House of Representatives, during one of these, government shutdowns or appropriations where they're fighting over the money, and say, look, we've got data from our voluntary funding website here that says that nobody's voluntarily funding this. You know what that tells us? Is that people don't want this program. I think that we can sunset this. I think we can drop this program, we can drop that program, because nobody is voluntarily funding it. So why would we force people? This is a program that people don't want. I mean, a politician can come in there and say, oh, this is a great program and all that. Let's find out. Let's see, the free market. Let's see if people really want your program. The free market can support Medicare, even something like Medicare for all. We don't have to be forced into it. Mm-hmm. There are so many people. I mean, look at how much money Bernie raised in 24 hours just for making these kind of promises. I got to believe that if we put a website up and said, hey, guess what? You don't have to spend money funding Bernie's campaign anymore. Just put your money in this program. You have it. It's there. Fund it. And if Medicare for all was funded like that, I wouldn't have anything negative to say about it. I wouldn't have any complaints.
That's great.
And if the defense budget was funded by you,
yeah,
I don't see why, other people would have, much room to complain, because it's like, well, you're not being asked to pay for it. You're paying for these other programs. I'm paying for these programs. These are approved programs. And we need to modernize. This is the 21st century, and we need to bring every aspect of this country, especially government and the education system and all these programs, into the 21st century. A lot of these people are operating on decades old technology. It's a waste. It's just burning money.
Oh yeah.
And we all look at the national debt, which ties into what I'm talking about here. The taxation and the inflation is the pistol and mortar that grinds the middle class into non-existence. And that's why we are where we are here today. We can put the brakes on it. We have the technology to do things more efficiently and get a much better result for everyone.
Yeah. I'm not going to issue any endorsements and until it's over, and even then, maybe not then, just because I'm going to, hopefully still be in business 4 years later.
No. Don't get your hands dirty, man.
Sure. But I did want to say, I mean, that's my number one priority as well, is the Fed. And I have talked about it with you. I haven't talked about it with you. I've talked about it on my program before about competing currencies and why would you not want your currency to be competitive and be worth as much as it possibly can? I think that's an interesting tie-in you have with the economic left, because I think they don't understand how the things that they think of the Republicans good on economy, but the good economy hurts them. And so I think it's a great tie-in for them to understand that Snickers bar analogy that you made, to say, this is how something that you like is actually more affordable with a responsible and competitive economic system. I mean,
Absolutely.
You touched on a lot of the questions, and I know we're not running out of time by any means, but but I think touched on a lot of the questions I have. Since we're kind of bouncing around a little bit anyway, I mean, do you just want to talk about like problem number 2 and 3 that you have, and how you would maybe address those?
Sure. And look, there's so many problems in this country right now that like I said, I want to avoid saying this is the number 1 and this is the number 2. These are all problems, and they all deserve attention. One that I was speaking with to somebody about earlier was the opioid crisis. Mm-hmm. And what we came up with was this: pot, poppy, what is it called? The kratom.
Oh yeah.
Rehab, and acetaminophen. And to explain what all that means is like, first off, we need to legalize on a national level, because pot is a great, marijuana, cannabis, whatever you want to call it, is a great alternative. Not only as an alternative pain reliever and muscle relaxer, but an effective tool to help wean yourself or get off of opiates, to take the edge off of those cravings, which can be quite brutal on someone physically, especially in the initial stages of getting off of the drug, or weaning yourself off of it. Same goes for kratom. We've seen legislative efforts to schedule kratom. They want to tighten down on that. I think that's a huge mistake. We need to make sure that that's available for addiction. Poppy, okay? We need to bring these troops that are guarding poppy fields home, period. That is just ridiculous. And,
I got to say, I didn't even know that was happening.
Unfortunately, it is happening, and a lot of people have it mixed up on what's really going on there. They kind of focus on, the fact that we've seen plenty of evidence that the CIA and other organizations, perhaps even rogue elements within these organizations, are responsible for smuggling, these products into the country to fund their black operations and probably line the pockets of crooked people that are involved in this. But there's really a lot more to the story. So, these drugs that they call, like synthetic opiates. Let's take a look at what that is. They don't just like mix a couple of random chemicals that they bought at Walmart together and say, hey, look, we've got a molecular compound that's close to an opiate now. No, they take actual poppy, they put it through a process of organic chemistry, and bind it to a binder agent, press it into a pill, and then ship it to the United States. And these are international big pharma companies. Bayer is in on it. Bayer was named after the guy that synthesized heroin in the late 1900s.
Wow.
And if you want to know the history of Bayer, why they changed their name, they used to be known as IG Farben, which was the company that it was a Nazi company during the Nazi regime. Yes. And they experimented on concentration camp victims. And they changed their name to Bayer after the Second World War to try to distance themselves from the stigma of the Nazi regime. These poppy fields, this poppy, from Afghanistan and other places, it's getting shipped to places like India and other manufacturing facilities where it's put through the process of organic chemistry, made into legal drugs, and shipped in. So there's that side of it too, that I really don't hear really anybody connecting the dots or putting that together. And they think that the troops are just guarding it all for cartel type people, and it's more than just cartel type people. It's the big pharma cartel.
Yeah,
that's where most of it's going. So which leaves us with acetaminophen. So in some type of so-called moment of genius, somebody said, "Hey, we're going to put this in these so-called legal drugs." As some type of measure to prevent people from abusing it. And possibly some other justifications there. But ultimately, this additive that they're putting in there just is killing people's livers.
Yeah.
People are still hooked. It does not counter the addictive properties of the substance. It just creates this additional poisoning factor, and we need to remove anything that we're lacing inside of over the counter or behind the counter pharmaceuticals. Anything that we're putting in there that doesn't need to be in there, for some kind of measure like that to prevent people to abuse it. We need to take that out. Nobody wants laced stuff. This is just, maybe I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they had good intentions, but it's not working, and it's having blowback, and it's creating an additional health crises, considering how destructive it is to the liver. I
think most people would be astounded to find out that the stuff they buy from behind the counter is laced. Or even over the counter for that matter, anything that comes in a professional bottle.
Yeah, the DARE officer would have you believe that, all you got to do is just walk down the street and they're going to be handing you marijuana bags laced with ecstasy and LSD and all kinds of stuff. And frankly, I've never seen that happen because, ecstasy and LSD are expensive, and nobody's going to be putting that for free in your bag of marijuana. At least I'm sure maybe, it's happened, but that's just not good business.
Right.
Drug dealers are in the business of turning a profit, and giving away free drugs is not profitable. But lo and behold, who is lacing their drugs? The pharmaceutical companies.
That's unreal. That's unreal. I think that is an amazing identification and a very creative fix there. So let's talk about your third biggest problem, and then we'll move on to the primary, or to the election strategy after that.
Man, there's two kind of things that I want to talk about here. There's education, and then there's immigration. And immigration is a huge subject in this country right now. And it's got us considering taking drastic measures that aren't even going to work as intended. And I'm so sick of these type of solutions. It's like the same guys, writing bumper stickers or coming up with these solutions or something. I don't know. But okay, the process needs to be simplified. Bottom line. We need to quit playing games with that. But something that's important to me, and I feel needs to be on the table here, is the onus of an immigration gets it seems like it gets put on America's shoulders and America's shoulders alone. You don't hear this outcry as far as, immigration in necessarily the other 194 countries in this world. I would like to put some treaties on the table. Of course, this is all voluntary, but I would like to put some treaties on the table for the other 194 countries to look at that says, hey, look, we've got our, let's just say, our bronze package, our silver package, and our gold package. Our gold package is our open borders treaty. If you sign our open borders treaty, that means it's two-way. It means American citizens can come to your country, they can open a business, they can enjoy all the same rights and privileges that one of your citizens enjoy, and vice versa. Your citizens can come here, they can get a job, they can start a business, etc. And I think that this would create a symbiotic relationship where, perhaps some American businesses might come over to those countries and open up businesses. And I know a lot of people are like, they took our jobs and all that. Well, let's take manufacturing off the table here per se, and let's just look at the service industry. America has got arguably the best service industries on the planet right now. Look at how efficient Starbucks, Walmart, CVS, and so many other mom and pop organizations that would love to expand into Mexico, for instance. But it's difficult to go to Mexico and enjoy that. For instance, right now, as I understand it, that you and I could never become a full citizen of Mexico. There's many regulations on the purchasing of property and how that is done. Like, you can't purchase property on the border, on the ocean. You got to do it through a fiduciary trust. And all of this red tape, which equals barriers to entry, which basically means that only publicly traded companies or extremely well-funded private equity firms can compete in this space. And it pretty much says to all the mom pops out there, you're not going to be able to jump high enough to get through these hoops to expand your business internationally. And I'm sure that there's companies in other countries too that don't exist in America right now that we would all love to see come to America. I'll just throw this one out there because the Second Amendment is near and dear to me. As I understand it right now, AK-47s and Russian manufactured weapons are currently banned from importation. Yeah. I would love to see a Kalashnikov factory here in the United States, and I would welcome something like that.
Sure.
And that comes down to trade and migration. Now, like with the Chinese right now, there's negotiations on the table because people are upset because they're not respecting any intellectual property rights. And I know that that's a very taboo subject with a lot of libertarians or people who identify as libertarians. But if we could reach some trade agreements where it's like, look, we will honor your trademarks, we will honor your patents, per the terms of this agreement. If you honor ours, we will honor your citizens as we honor our own. If if it's symbiotic, I have the feeling that if we put this like a bronze package, a silver package, and of course the gold package, I've been kind of talking about the gold package, on the table, that typically I think that there's going to be a lot of pressure to go with the gold package because it's like, that's a good deal for us. It's a good deal for both parties.
Right. And it's actually something you could accomplish at the executive level as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Let me combine the next two questions. We're going to back up. Oh, no, you wanted to talk about education a little bit. I didn't want to stomp on that.
I did. A lot of money is getting spent on education. A lot of Money is getting wasted under the guise of education, building football stadiums and the like. We build these big monolithic schools, and school hasn't really changed that much in the last 100 years. And, here's a little walk down memory lane of how we got to where we are. So with the implementation of the Federal Reserve, inflation, and the 16th Amendment, ratified or not, the IRS income tax.
Yep.
It wasn't too much longer before. Oh, also, okay, so money got tight on families, and we went from kind of the single working, typically speaking, where it would be like the dad who was the breadwinner, to where that didn't work anymore. And in order to stay afloat, both parents had to enter the workforce. So now we're entering a situation where there was nobody to watch the kids. And it's like they Hungarian dialected us into, okay, problem, reaction, oh, well, who's watching the kids? Solution, federal education.
Yep.
And essentially what we've got is this nationwide daycare program. And that's what's preventing education from entering into the 21st century. We have, for instance, and I'll try to be quick about this. We are in an era where literally every kid can receive a world-class education. Harvard professors, for instance, can give a class just like we're communicating right now to like literally millions of people. For a fraction of the price, because you don't have to pay for that school, the building, the logistics, and all that. You can do it from the comfort of your own home, or anywhere where you had an internet connection. And there is pushback. The government is not being very receptive to the modernization of education. We saw that Berkeley, for instance, had like over 20,000. You may know about this. Had over 20,000 of their professors, classroom experiences, what have you, presentations on the internet available for free. And somebody in government found some kind of like backhole loophole. They didn't like this, and the way that they came at it was like through the Americans with Disabilities Act, I think it was. It's like, oh, well, since you don't have all that in Braille, you're discriminating. So they took it down, which was a really good thing that they took down. Now, fortunately, some guy had the foresight to download all of that content. He re-uploaded it, mirrored the whole site on a site called LBRY. It's short for library. I think it's .com or maybe .net or .org there, but it's LBRY. And they've got 20,000 Berkeley, various different, things that, that happened at Berkeley, classroom, recordings of the classroom and things of that nature, available up there. But it's being suppressed. Now, people are tied into the situation because who's going to watch the kids, And I think that that's actually the big problem that we really need to focus on. It's not that we don't have the technology to completely transform and modernize education in ways that people would have never imagined before. It's, okay, who's going to watch the kids, or how are we going to handle this situation? Now, I think if we take care of some of the other stuff that we talked about, and quit robbing families, that's one part of the solution. But, also we're in a day and age where parents are monitoring their children in ways that they could never have done before. They can literally track their children, GPS, they know where they are, communication, the parents' ability to supervise their children has been modernized. We need to recognize this and come up with alternative solutions to forcing kids to show up at, 7 or 8 a.m. and stay locked in a building, for 7-8 hours, 5 days a week. Is just so unproductive in comparison to how efficiently we could be running education today. And I look forward to getting to talk about this subject more and more as time goes on. But hey, let's continue on with them.
No, we will have further interviews like this. And just to be clear, I don't have a time limit for anything that you want to say. I just want to respect your time. I just know it's a lot of questions, and I want you to take as much time as you feel like taking. I just don't want it. I just don't want you to. I don't want it to all of a sudden be 3 hours later and be like, well, you can expect that every single time we need to talk. A 3-hour dialogue. I think what you address is really good. I really like. I don't think enough people know that they always measure it in terms of the average hours of the full-time worker. And they're like, well, it's only gone from, 38 hours in 1978 to 42, hours nowadays. But then you look at household hours worked and it's gone from, 42 hours to 60, 70 hours. I mean, it's completely decimated the parents' ability to help in the education process. And I like the fact that you went about it from, I think a lot of times we want to gut them financially, but most of it's financed at the state and local levels. And at the executive level, you wouldn't necessarily be able to, I think there's $100 trillion in there, or $100 billion in there available to play around with a little bit, but it's mostly scholarships. But what you're doing is you're addressing it as changing the standards and modernizing it. And that is at the national level. And that is something that a president and his cabinet would be able to deal with. So I like that conversation.
I would basically tell the Department of Education, let's just say if elected, you guys got, say, 90 days to deliver a plan to transform the entire education system into the 21st century, going into the 22nd century, or we're ending this government department and we're allowing the states the freedom to figure it out on their own. Because all these unfunded mandates, and I remember, I think Gary Johnson did a good job of explaining once in a debate how when he was governor, that they would put all these expectations and that it would end up costing him more to get their money, and it's just a huge mess. Whereas, look, and this is something that people need to understand. We could completely abolish, dissolve the Federal Department of Education, and the state of Texas, for instance, is still going to have public education because it's a part of our state constitution.
Yeah.
And nothing that happens on the federal level changes that. No. But what it would do is it would free up the state of Texas instead of having to kowtown to federal regulations and whatever, moron or, hey, maybe they're a reasonably intelligent person, but, they don't understand Texas, trying to dictate how we do things down here.
Yeah.
We can figure it out.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. I think only 1% of the national budget is actually spent on employee pay, and 2% is departmental purchases. It's very low. And even then, that's mostly their own employee pay and their own department. It's not even at the state level like you're talking about. So let's move on. Let's talk about, let's take a step back from economy. Let's just talk about social issues real quick. I'll go ahead and combine the question, but that even if you get 100% of the Libertarians showing up to the polls and voting for you, you're going to pull in 15% at best if every single one shows up and every single one votes for you. So we're going to need to borrow, if we're talking about in terms of an election, you're going to need to borrow to win from the left and the right a little bit. So just on social issues, that the left is worried about social justice. They're worried about the wage gap. They're worried about the relationship between minorities and police officers, privilege. And then on the right, you've got problems like immigration. I know that they were thinking about, we've already taken down crosses because you can see them from highways for their churches. They're worried about their families and family values. How would you pull from the left and the right in a way that would make them vote for you instead of the candidate that they have representing them?
Well, it's pretty simple. If people haven't figured out by now, I will say it's in no uncertain terms. You're not going to get what you want from the left and the right. because the approach that they take is this federal overreaching solution that is a, and is a one size fits no one, essentially, type of solution. And what we need to do, in my view, is we need to take it down to the local level. And this is why my campaign is so focused on promoting local candidates nationwide, is we need to take it down to the local level. If you live in let's say a rural county in East Texas, like I do, and a lot of the people in my community, if you got a nativity scene, you can keep your nativity scene. If you've got a Civil War statue, you can keep your Civil War statue. If you have traditions, that are important to your community, you can keep those. You should not feel threatened by the federal government encroaching upon your way of life, your traditions, your values. And that goes both ways too. On the left, and I don't feel like the left is alone and concerned with, police brutality and things of that nature. What we've done there is we've grown the government at the local level. There's about a million police, local, state, and federal, in the United States. About a million total. Half of them are local. More than half are city cops and county sheriffs. And when you get pulled over by the police, it's almost always a local city police force. And when people get, when we see these no-knock warrants, we see people getting shot on the side of the road. We see people getting choked to death over selling cigarettes. These were all local police departments. By running libertarians and liberty-minded people in general in these local city races, we can start to rein this in. We just don't need all of this type of law enforcement. Not saying that our communities don't need security and to have some type of mechanism, to secure themselves. But something, recently I've kind of gotten involved in the volunteer fire department a little bit because I'm just really fascinated by the way this works. And it's got me asking myself, could we not do something like this with law enforcement as well? I believe that the potential exists, and I think that we would get a better result, because we've even mislabeled it. Calling them law enforcement officers is not what we should be calling them. This is community security. They should be more concerned with securing the community instead of creating a bust and generating revenue and dragging people through the court system and then staining their reputation for the rest of their lives with a criminal history that never goes away. I mean, why does the criminal history system not mirror the credit history system?
It's progressed a lot past the common defense Constitution, right?
You default on a credit card. Yeah, there should be automatic expungements. Things should automatically drop off your criminal record, just like things automatically drop off your credit history after certain amounts of time. It is a violation, in my belief, of the spirit of the Eighth Amendment, cruel and unusual punishment, to permanently, digitally scar somebody's reputation for the rest of their life for something they did, perhaps in their early 20s. This needs to stop.
Yeah.
I can go on, but I wanted to check in with you, make sure I was still, on point here.
No,
if you had any questions.
No, it sounds great so far. I mean, I just think I agree. I think it's progressed so much past common defense when you're punishing people for the rest of their lives, it has nothing to do with defense. I know that we on the We're Libertarians Network, we have a podcast all about the privatized police force, and it's one of our 3-hour episodes, but it's really good. And there's some misunderstandings about it. A lot of people think, oh, they're just going to ticket more people, and in essence, they actually stopped doing tickets. And most of the time, what they actually cut their response times in half in responding to actual violent crime. And had higher conviction rates. I mean, and this is within the United States. I mean, it's contracted out because we can't just say we're privatizing it because of the way the legal system works. But when we contracted it out, we said, okay, well, here's the money we're going to be getting, from our taxpayers. We need to make this work. We're not going to raise any revenue from tickets or from towing cars or from civil asset forfeiture. They ended up doing things that were a lot better. So I think what you're talking about is kind of right on track when you're exploring the voluntary or the private sector police force along, based on your experiences with the volunteer firefighter.
We need to, and just to go back to something you'll hear me talk about a lot, we need to diversify. We need to think like smart investors, and not put all our eggs in one basket. And what we've done is we've put all our eggs in this one kind of version of law enforcement basket, and we have virtually nothing to compare it to. And we need to get some other things and other programs up and running, whether it's privatized or volunteer, combination of the two, possibly some other solutions, so that we can start drawing some comparisons here and start looking at some real data instead of just looking at the one option that we're being presented, because that is not working out very well. People are very upset. They're living in fear. And that is just not the direction that we should be going as a country. And I think that everybody knows that deep down, no matter what side of the blue line they're on.
I think that would definitely satisfy like a lot of the issues that the left and the right have socially, and would make them consider a campaign like yours at all, as opposed to the ones, because I don't hear the left and the right talking about that enough, and that competition for less victims instead of it being a single size, like you said, one size fits no one. I love that competition of what fits nobody very well. So let's move on to the economy. Again, same question, left, right. That the left is going to be interested in things like they're worried about healthcare for everybody. They're worried about their Social Security. They hate seeing big corporations get a tax break, and meanwhile they're nitpicking all these food stamps. And then likewise on the right, we've got issues with the government just expanding, and we just don't see an end in sight for it. So why would someone on the right, who's likely presented with Trump, to vote for, why would they consider you? And why would someone on the left, with all the social economic programs that they're interested in, why would they consider you instead of the Democrats or the Republicans?
Well, I'll tell you one reason why they should consider me. Before I did this interview with you, I didn't spend any time, looking up data on how to pander to the left or the right. I answered the questions honestly, off the cuff, and that's a level of genuineness that just doesn't exist in politics, a level of honesty that doesn't exist. I'm not here to pander. I'm here to solve problems, and not necessarily present myself as the ultimate problem solver, but be a conduit and a facilitator for all of the problem solvers in the country and the world to come together and begin to solve these problems in an open, honest, and transparent way, and not hide good solutions just because this solution over here, which is really a non-solution, is really just some money-making scheme that I've come up with, or me and my buddies have come up with, that we're presenting to you as a solution. Like, let's say Trump's wall. Imagine a guy that's been in the construction business his whole life wanting to do a big construction project. Just like remember the Bin Laden family? They were in the construction business too, and they benefited from all of those state-sponsored construction programs. In New York, you hear Larry Sharp talk about it all the time. All the money that they're spending, and the mafia is in on it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's become a mafia cottage industry. And what problems have been solved in the last 10, 20 years? Have we solved the major problem in this country? Can you think of one?
I mean, I believe their success in New York, according to Mr. Cuomo, is that they keep raising the property taxes by less every year. So it's still going up, but less.
But their appraisal values are skyrocketing. So you're showing one number. This is what they normally do. Well, we're going to show you the number on this. Don't flip the page.
Yeah.
Don't look at the next page. Redact page 2. And that's just not how I operate. This is what you see is what you get, good, bad, and ugly.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you the bad news. And a lot of people don't like that because they don't want to hear bad news, but too bad. I'm going to tell you the bad news anyway, because you need to hear it. And this is something that none of the candidates on the left or the right that I know about do. Yeah. I don't know why they don't do it. And maybe I'm going to find out the hard way that, this is being honest and transparent and open about looking for solutions. Maybe that's just something that the American people don't want. Maybe they want this other garbage. And then I'll have to rethink, like, why is that? I think people have just grown accustomed. I think we were all raised in either, families that, historically voted conservative or voted liberal, or we were from different parts of the country. And, similar to how we root for our home sports teams and all that, we're rooting for our home kind of political. We're a blue state, a red state. And man, I want to be a problem solving state, in the absence of color or left-right paradigm. I just want the best solutions, and I want them for the best possible prices.
Yeah, that's competitive and I think very honest in saying this isn't my solution. This is, I guess, the market solution or the
this is
variety of solutions. Like you said, I mean, I love the idea of a Kickstarter government to say this is where I'd like to see. Even I love defense, right? I told you that I feel that that's a great function. If you're going to have a government, that's probably the number one that I want to see. But I also want to keep that competitive as well. I don't want to build F-16s that go in a graveyard and never get flown, and I think keeping it competitive in that aspect is really great.
Yeah, exactly. Let me just say this, and it should be so detailed that, let's say, I'm just gonna assume here, not saying that this is what you support, but let's say you're particularly fond of the United States Marine Corps. Okay. Well, then you can donate specifically to the United States Marine Corps. Yeah. But let's say you're not so big on the Space Force. You're not obligated to put your money into that. You put your money into the Marine Corps. The Space Force, they're gonna have to get their money from somebody else. It should be that specific.
Yeah. Well, and I think, even on Kickstarter, you get breweries, right? That's like the number one thing on Kickstarter. But I think even those breweries are kept competitive with each other because they want your money. Not all of them are going to get that funding. Not all of them are going to exist. So they have to really be the best idea. Not only do I like the Marine Corps, but I want that Marine Corps to be driven to the highest standard of excellence possible. And if there's multiple plans proposed, I presume the most money is going to go to that highest proposed plan, or to the highest quality plan. So let's take a step back, and now let's try to get you through the primaries. Your competition. I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask you just a 4-in-1 question. You've got really 4 parts of the Libertarian Party that I surmise, but you've got the Libertarian left, the Socialists, the Mutualists, the Mike Shipleys, the Sam Coppingers, and then on the right, you've got the kind of the capitalists. You've got the Mises Institute, Michael Heiss, Josh Smith. You've got the anarchists as well. I don't want to use anybody who's also already running for president, but several anarchists, of course, within the party that want to see the government totally reduced. And
the
then
Radical Caucus.
Yeah, the Radical Caucus. And then you've got the minarchists, I'll just call them the I don't know, moderates, the mainstreams. Those are the ones that usually show up at convention.
The pragmatics.
Pragmatics, yeah. I know because you just spend so much time dealing with Libertarian Party functions. I know exactly, everything that I'm talking about. I'm just framing it for the audience.
Yeah.
What's your best appeal to the left, right, radicals, and pragmatics? Why should they select you instead of maybe a candidate that's decided to go whole hog on their ideals?
Because I'm not going whole hog on my ideals. I'm willing to bridge the gap here. And just like I believe that we did throughout, the journey that has been this conversation so far, we have illustrated how a good idea stands on its own. A good idea is not born out of ideology necessarily, or it's not obligated to be so. A good idea, a good solution stands on its own. And when we have a good solution that truly does stand on its own, it appeals to all sides. And when it's implemented in a certain way, it appeals to all sides. And if we're actually putting good solutions on the table that drew upon the collective wisdom of all sides, not promoting collectivism here, but the collective wisdom. When we draw upon the collective wisdom that is our party, we can come up with solutions. Yeah. And I'm not adverse to working with anybody that's truly working towards functional working solutions that do bring about a more desirable world for us to live in. Some people they hold grudges, they are ideological snobs and just reject the opinions of others. And I will argue, for instance, I will debate against authoritarian socialism. But you mentioned Mike Shipley earlier, and where I give him some credit is, he might be one of your more left-leaning libertarians, but when it comes to authoritarian socialist entryism, he draws a line.
Yeah.
And I respect that. And I can work with a guy like that, because that's the line that I think that we're all really concerned about. Is some people frame it as the non-aggression principle. I like personally to keep it to the Libertarian Pledge, because we own that. There's no confusion about what the Libertarian Pledge is. Depending on who you ask, you get a different version of the non-aggression principle, but the Libertarian Pledge is in black and white. It's written in stone. Yeah. And I think that is one of the things that really does unite us all. And as long as the problem is not some authoritarian solution that we're going to force down everybody's throats, and it's a good solution that stands on its own, there's no reason. It's naturally the various different sides of the party are going to get behind that.
Yeah.
That it should work itself out naturally. It should not be forced.
Great. Compared to the other libertarian candidates that there are right now, simply, why are you the best one?
Well, I think that all of the candidates are competent guys, men and women. They're principled. They have the spirit of liberty in their hearts. However, I feel perhaps I might be the best candidate because I'm no less in those areas, and I have a lot more time and availability than I believe everybody else does. I calculated it up last night. I was talking to a friend here in Texas, and each one of the other candidates seems to work full-time jobs. And if you do the math on this, up until just convention, not even November of the election, that gives me an additional 2,000 hours or more to work with local campaigns across the country. I do not believe, as a matter of fact, I think it's a big myth that like Gary Johnson and Bill Weld equal votes on the local level. I think it works the other way, because nobody in my local level, nobody in Henderson County, Texas, East Texas, has a clue who Bill Weld or Gary Johnson is. Those names have no meaning in our community. They literally don't. But what would really help a presidential campaign is if we started focusing on getting Libertarians elected to local city and county offices, to where they could develop a real relationship with the community there and break through all the stigmas that the mainstream media and our political opponents have projected onto us over the last almost 50 years now. And, give people the opportunity to be like, wait a minute, that's what libertarian leadership is like? Oh, I like that. I think I will vote for the L for president. I think I will vote Libertarian for president because I have a Libertarian on city council, and that's my favorite person on city council. I've got a Libertarian on the as a county commissioner, and that's my favorite guy, working, with the county commissioners. I've got a Libertarian sheriff. When people have Libertarian city council people, Libertarian county commissioner, Libertarian sheriffs, then we're going to start to see Libertarian representatives. We're going to start to see, and then, from there it grows to the potential of, Libertarian governors, Libertarian presidents. We build up to that. We don't look for this Libertarian messiah to come along, run as a president, just wow the American people, and then all of a sudden, because the American people like that one guy so much, now they're going to start voting for local Libertarians. No, it works the other way around. Because in your community, that's where you get to develop the relationship with the people in that community. I can't, and neither can, Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton. The best that they can do is fly around in an airplane with a Wi-Fi connection, essentially that, and you know what? The playing field's level. I can do that too. But it really comes down to the members of this party, especially our local candidates. They are what makes the difference here. All I intend to do is help them run the best campaigns possible. And this is not trickle down politics. This is built,
it's very bottom up the way you've described it. Establish the base and then work up from there. Yeah.
Yeah. This is built upon a foundation. And that's how I envision this going. When people offer to contribute money to my campaign, I tell them about somebody else's local campaign. Right now, for instance, I'm really pushing Billy Hunt because he's in a special election. He's got really good odds of winning this, not guaranteed, but better odds than you normally see. And it's, I believe, it's coming up here really soon. I mean, like in a few weeks. So I've been telling people, hey, if you really want to help my campaign out, let's get Billy Hunt elected. Right. Let's get Matt Pina elected for mayor of San Antonio. Let's get Teresa Rushing elected to the city council in Arlington, Texas. Mm-hmm. And I mean, there's so many more campaigns. My friend Ernest Claiborne, let's get him elected to Montgomery City Council in Alabama. Because when people start to see, things happen on their local level, then and only then will they believe in a libertarian governor or a libertarian president. It's never going to work the other way. I just don't see it. I suppose it's possible, but I'll tell you the best that'll happen. That person will be a 1, maybe 2-term president, but the rest of the Libertarian Party is essentially going to be right where it was before. Yeah. We need to build a base.
Yeah.
We need to develop.
That's very true. It reminds me of a story. Booker T. Washington was studying the Bible and how the Jews managed to be let go by their Babylonian captors. And it was eventually Nebuchadnezzar, and he wasn't the one who eventually let him go, but this process happened, and eventually Nebuchadnezzar looked around and said, so my best advisor is Jewish, and he's supposed to be inferior, but he's not. He's my best advisor. Our best soldiers in the field are Jewish. You know, instead of being lazy, they became like the best soldiers that they had access to. Our best gardeners, which they valued, they were Jewish. So suddenly what the Jews did, and this was systematic, this was actually a plan put forward, I guess you could say by God, but by Ezekiel, who said, let's be, instead of just being the laziest, worst, whatever, until they let us go, because that'll never happen, why don't we be the best we can? And then if we're better than they are, they'll find out that they're equals. And that's what ended up happening there. And it's one of those things that inspired Booker T. Washington to say, I know I'm black and I'm not supposed to go to these colleges, but they can't deny me if I have these accreditations. And I feel like it's something that the Libertarian Party could do to say, if we are already the best sheriff that you know, the best council person that you know, it just helps to establish a lot of trust in that. And then people look around that ordinarily think of you as inferior, and let's face it, as libertarians, that happens sometimes. But they say, if this guy is the best person we've ever had at the position, then suddenly you start to gain more and more trust until you find that equality. Maybe I'm stretching it by making that comparison, but that's just what I think of, I guess, when I think of
I agree with you. I think it's a ridiculous notion to expect people to.
Oh, sorry. I got you unmuted again.
Hold on.
You're fine. You get to hear the You're fine. We're almost done too, but yeah, you're good.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yep.
Yeah, there was an incoming call there. Sorry.
No, you're
back to that.
You're fine. Don't worry about it. So let's see here. Oh, let me get back to my questions here.
Oh.
So what's your plan? You talk about having that time. So let's get into that. One of the things that I find that most of the libertarians get tripped up in is they love the philosophy, but the plan falls apart. When I've worked on a campaign, and I've worked on, I'm not a proud, but I work for George W. Bush, but to help get him elected, I find that the president spends 90% of his time raising money, maybe 8% of his time meeting with important people, and like 2% of the time sleeping maybe. And it's one of those that I find that many are worried. I think that's why the pragmatics tend to win the day a lot of the time, is because they're afraid that the person we're putting up has no idea what that process looks like. You seem to be on the path, but like, would you like to go into detail about that plan?
Yes. You're right. A lot of politicians, president included, spend a lot of time talking to people on the phone, trying to figure out how to get money out of their pockets and into their campaign fund so that they can go spend it on, hiring their friend as a consultant and, various other schemes. Let's face it, it's no secret that the campaign finance laws are a little shady and that it's being exploited. There's two ways, there's financial equity, and then there's sweat equity. And I think that the way that this is going to be, I don't think that you could give me $1 million for my campaign, let's just say. And I don't think that $1 million per se could buy the level of sweat equity that I can put into this. That should not be undervalued. And not just my own sweat equity, but the sweat equity of all the campaigns on the local level across the country that I'm talking about here. That's where I see the results coming from. I don't want them to be a part of the presidential campaign. I want the presidential campaign to be a part of their campaign. That's why I do interviews like this with local candidates. There was a local candidate, we call him Porky. His name's Francisco Martinelli out of Rhode Island. He got 30 something percent, pretty close to winning. Wow. There. Yeah. And it was pretty much just him and Tom Markey, and I think Francisco's brother, who may live out of state, and that was like essentially the campaign team. According to them, just a couple of videos that I did with them really helped raise some attention, to this local candidate. And that was beneficial. We haven't seen presidential candidates like Gary Johnson and Bill Weld, who are the only ones who've been around during the time period of where this kind of technology kind of exists, do that. Now this technology is here. We're seeing more presidential candidates start to work with people. And that is a trend that I'm trying to start. And one of the ways that I work is, raise the bar. So if I'm doing it, that means that all the other candidates in the race are going to either have to say, I'm going to jump that high, or they choose not to and suffer the consequences. And by continuously raising the bar against the other presidential campaigns, I leverage them to benefit my ultimate goal here, which is supporting these local campaigns across the country. And the more of those people that we get elected in 2019 and 2020 and beyond, that is my measurement of victory. And that's one of the many ways that, I intend to make it happen, is by making it obvious what I'm doing. I'm confident that the other candidates will also emulate what I'm doing, and possibly even figure out ways to do it better, which only helps further the process of getting those local victories, which, like I keep saying, we need to develop that base before we're ever really going to achieve things like presidential victories and stuff like that. So there's alternative ways to lead. There's indirect ways to lead. You do not necessarily have to run a direct leadership campaign. If you're clever, there's an old Tesla quote, something to the effect of, it's not that they steal my ideas that bothers me, it's that they don't have any of their own. And it's, fortunately, that's not completely the case in this party. Many of the candidates do have ideas of their own. And it seems like some of them even share the same spirit as I do of please steal these ideas. I know that, Larry Sharp famously says, please steal my policies, all the time. Please steal my ideas.
Yeah.
And, I think that that's a great leadership quality that he exhibits. And that's how we're going to get this done on the top of the ticket level, is by continuing to kind of raise the bar together, which, inspires or motivates the other candidates to do the same. And when all of the candidates in the race are putting a special emphasis on local races and what can they do for them, not what can the party do for us, but what can we do for the party? And this is what we can do for the party. That we're going to see a shift in the way that the Libertarian Party operates simply by me being here and making this an aspect of my campaign. Another core aspect of my campaign that I don't think that we touched on too much is the felons in this country. Now we're seeing data. There's like 30 million felons in this country.
Yeah.
And let's do a little quick math here. 60-something million people voted for Donald Trump and about the same for Hillary Clinton. 60 million. Okay, so 30 million, that's half the people necessary right there to win a presidential election. This group of people has been screwed over by the left and the right for decades. And I think that this is a group of people that I especially want to focus on to bring them in here, because I feel like that there's no better home for the convicted felons in this country than the Libertarian Party. And I want to see more felons running for federal offices, because felons, they can't run for local offices or state offices typically, but they can run for U.S. Congress, U.S. Senate, and of course, U.S. President, U.S. Vice President, because the U.S. Constitution defines the criteria to run for those offices. And I want to see I want to see this group of 30 million people, and then really it's more than that, because we're seeing data that 1 out of every other person is either a felon or lives in a felon household, or is closely related to somebody who's a felon. So this is half the country. We've seen the data on half the country isn't even voting for the presidential race. Who do you think they are?
I mean, felons are probably a huge chunk of them. I would imagine. I just think a lot of people uninspired is tend to what I think. Jaded. Like late. It's easy to brush them off as being lazy, but if you're genuinely uninspiring, it feels like I should why show up to the poll at all?
Why? Yeah, you have. Now, I mean, that's one thing that does make me a unique candidate. I, have a felony for marijuana that I got about 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And if the laws don't change, I will carry that stigma on paper for the rest of my life. And so I can really relate to this group of 30 million people, because I am one of them. And this is a group of people that I really want to focus on, because, we can fight over diehard Democrat voters and diehard Republican voters, right? But there is another half of the country that has become jaded with the system. They have lost faith in the system, and I certainly can't blame anybody. This last year was the first year that I ever voted, because, I had become jaded with the system, but the Libertarian Party has presented a pathway, and I feel that I need to make my best effort to make this pathway work, because the alternative, is not pretty. And I certainly wouldn't want to take the country down the road of another revolution. Like I said, I would rather see a renaissance. And I think that's what we really need right now is a renaissance. And part of that renaissance is bringing all of these groups of people that have been disenfranchised by the system for one reason or another into the fold, especially into the Libertarian Party, where they can have a voice, and that we can take our voices to the Capitol buildings across this country, state and federal, and make a real difference. The numbers do exist. It's just about letting people who have lost faith in the system know that, what, we've got an option on the table. Let's do something. Join us.
No, I think it's more than just like you said, it's more than a small minority. It's we have very few people showing up to vote for president anyway. I think the total population of the United States is over 300 million. So when we talk about 30 million, that's like 10% of it. And then not many more than that even show up to vote after that. On top of that, it's inspiring. Like when you have somebody that's actually going to bat for you, as opposed to the same back and forth, it gets you to show up to the polls. We have at least 3 podcasts dedicated to just talking about felons and getting their voting rights restored. I mean, it's something.
Please send me the links. Please send me links to those.
I will. Sarah Brady Wagner is a contributor and a host on We're Libertarians, and that's. I'm not sure if there's something she's more passionate about, but it's up there. And I'll send you those links. Very last question. Where can people find you if they're interested in your campaign?
benletter.com is my website. Of course, it's always under development and improvement. It exists and it's looking pretty good, but I'm going to be putting a lot more work into it into the coming months. Also, I'm really easy to find on Facebook. Benjamin Letter. If anybody wanted to send me a friend request, my campaign page is Ben Letter. I have a Facebook group, Ben Letter for President. I'm also, of course, I have a Twitter account too. I don't, unlike Donald Trump, I don't spend a lot of time tweeting. I don't understand why that's so appealing to some people, but maybe I'll do a little bit more tweeting. But I think that I've really been able to have an effect on Facebook. in kind of my little subtle covert way of dealing with people one-on-one. I really specialize in influencing the influencers, and collaborating and working with them, how we can, project, liberty bigger and brighter on every wall in the country. If anybody is running for local office and would like my support, please reach out. If you were interested in participating in the campaign, know that that is one of the things that I would definitely be asking anybody that did volunteer for my campaign, is to understand that this campaign is about supporting the local races across the country. So, we intend to be the Air Force, if you will, for the boots on the ground across this country. And when they need air support, we will deliver it.
Awesome. Man, thank you so much for coming on out. You shouldn't knock your own website too bad, by the way. I actually did extend this invitation to all candidates running for president, not just Libertarians. So I have the invitations out there to the Democrats as well as a couple of the Republicans trying to primary Trump. And not all of the Democrats have their websites set up yet. Some of them are still like in the introductory exploratory committee, even though they've already declared. And so their website's not even running. So you shouldn't feel too bad. Like if you have something up and running, that's actually doing better.
No, my website is decent, but I mean, I have a vision of a masterpiece here. And so it's like, hey, hold on, it's like, it's going to get better. It's only going to get better. Like
Michelangelo with the Sistine Chapel. Like, you feel like it looks great. You can be done now. And he's like, no, just you wait.
No.
Just you wait. Awesome.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's benleder.com. And again, that's LEDER on the last name, everybody. LEDER, benleder.com if you're interested in the campaign. Ben, again, thank you so much for taking the time out to do this. I know it was a big chunk of your day. You're actually busy and doing other libertarian things in the middle of Austin. So I definitely, and I don't think anybody else can ever accuse you of being lazy about the job.
And I don't know, did we even mention where I'm at right now?
Yeah, Austin, Texas. You said you were at the Capitol.
No.
You didn't even say.
No. Right now, I'm at the JW Marriott Hotel where the 2020 convention is being held.
That's right.
So I am literally here where it's all going to go down, where it's going to get decided. I'm going to try to, battery permitting, I think I'm good, get maybe a little bit of footage of the hotel while I'm here. Or some pictures, just for everybody's benefit. I do want to say that this is a very impressive facility, and I know that we're going to have a great time here. So everybody, get your tickets to the 2020 National Convention now. Start buying them now. This is going to be, I think it's going to be a record year for us. I think that this is going to be a spectacular convention coming up. And I'm really looking forward to spending a few nights in this hotel with all my brothers and sisters in Liberty, and decide, who our nominee is going to be, among many, many other things that will get decided over that very, very important and powerful weekend.
Awesome, man! It sounds like it's going to be a great time. The last one, I felt like we had a good spirit coming out of it. And I think it's going to just get better. Classically, when people start voting Libertarian or start even voting third party, they don't go back to the other two major parties. So I'm hoping you're right on that big step forward, and that keeps going. Yeah, you've already met with some U.S. senators today, and you just
state senators today.
But you're all over the place. Well, thank you for doing the important work and everything that you do. Listeners, if you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe to our Patreon. It's obviously a tremendous commitment from us to bring you important people like Ben, and we would like to continue to do so, but we can only do so with your support. So please check us out. We're Libertarians on Patreon, and we'd appreciate whatever support you can provide. Ben, thank you again, and best of luck in running, my friend.
Thank you. And I want to say to the audience too, please support this podcast. And that is another thing that, if you've noticed all the presidential debates that have been going on, I've been organizing those behind the scenes because I have the time to do so. But I've specifically been hooking up with independent libertarian podcasts and things like that, and to bypass the mainstream media, because we need to become the media. Yep. And by supporting podcasts like We Are Libertarians and others, that is how we're really going to create that shift, by uplifting all of these podcasts and various different media outlets and publications that are independent from the mainstream. That's how we're really going to leverage things and get the word out there. We have an upcoming debate on the 26th presidential debate. It's going to be hosted by Dan Fishman on his podcast, Liberty on the Air. That'll be at 9 p.m. on the 26th. Yeah, you should be able to find that. There's a link on Facebook. And certainly once it's aired, it's going to get shared everywhere, and everybody will have the opportunity to check that out.
Great. Well, I appreciate you making my pitch for me. That certainly makes it a lot more credible. Thanks again, Ben. You have a good day.
It's very important. See you, man.
Awesome. Bye.